reaction.
Oh, hell yeah.
This is Dubs OT.
Can't wait.
With John Dickinson.
Hey, JD, what you up to, sugar? Long time no talk to.
On KNBR 104.5 and 680. Streaming live at knbr.com and on the KNBR app.
That's Spencer to inbound. Melton comes free, down 2 here. Shot clock at 7. Melton rejected the screen, down the lane, laying it up and in, and tie the game.
He just rejected the screen. He was calling for Pat Spencer, just went before they thought he was going to.
Shot clock down to 11. Gillespie, 44% three-point shooter. Gonna drive it on Moody. Denied again. The Suns are 1 for their last 11. Guy Santos in a foot race. Guy to lay it up and in.
What a wild sequence to close out the Warriors win. That's right. I said that correctly if you turned it off. Warriors come back and win in the Valley. 101-97 is the final. 25-15 Warriors in the fourth quarter. They got obliterated in the third quarter, but 3 out of the 4 quarters, the Warriors were really competitive in this game, and they wind up on a big-time run late to come back from 14 down. It was 90-76. The Warriors were down, so you add it all up and you do the math on that, and the Warriors end up, 25-7 to close out the game, a 25-7 run. Big game from Al Horford. A hell of a game from Guy Santos. The Warriors were hustling around. They hit 15 three-pointers in the first half, only 5 in the second half, but it's still 20 for the game. And a day and a recent 48 hours, frankly, that's felt a little bleak around the Golden State Warriors. The guys that are out there without Steph, obviously Jonathan Kuminga and Buddy Hield moving on, Kristaps Porzingis coming in. But the guys who were out there playing tonight, doesn't feel like the Warriors win too many of these games once they lost the original lead. But it is, I don't want to make too much of it, but it is inspiring to see that the guys that are remaining still on this team go out there and be able to put forth an effort and compete. And we've talked about it, at times the talent just does not look like it's there at all from some of the other guys that aren't Steph Curry or Jimmy Butler. But the one thing that has happened, even though it hasn't led to many wins in those situations, is for the most part, the Warriors have competed in a lot of those games. So big time credit to the Warriors and the players available there tonight down in the Valley of the Sun as they rally after leading by as many as 10 to trail by 14 there in the fourth quarter. And then the big run, 25-7 run for Golden State to pull out a 101-97 victory over the Suns. That's a Suns team that's 10 games over 500. Surprisingly, picked by many, including yours truly, to probably be a bottom 5 team in the Western Conference. But for the Warriors to prove to themselves that regardless of what the ceiling for this team is here in the final 30 games and between now and whether they wind up a play-in tournament team or whether they find themselves eking into a first round, whatever you think the ceiling is for this Warriors team, however frustrated, and we're going to get to all the frustration about the trade deadline and what did, and I think more importantly, what didn't go down at the trade deadline now with that passing in the noon hour. I think this team showing the fight tonight is not insignificant, because they've got 30 games left. And we talked about the fact here over the lead up to the trade deadline, how it felt as if the trade deadline was going to have to keep pushing this team forward to have them continue to be able to compete between now and the end of the regular season. And to show those guys had a belief in each other, I think is important, and a lot of game balls to go around. So just want to start the show by saying that. We welcome you in here. It's Dubs OT with JD here on the Sports Leader. Kyle Harr in the Daly City studios. 808 KNBR, the number, 415-808-5627. The Golden State Lumber and Showroom text line is open for you to jump in and join the conversation. The best YouTube chat in sports. And we're going to do something a little bit different here, Kyle. Good evening to you, my friend. I want to get to a pretty quick installment here of Kyle's Clicks. I want to let everybody just kind of react to the game and react to the comeback because, it was one of those games the Warriors played pretty well in the first half. And you're thinking, man, they've got a shot tonight, but Phoenix is still ultimately the more talented team. And if the Warriors go cold from three from the 15 that they hit in the first half, you felt like the game had the potential to flip and flip in the wrong direction for Golden State. And honestly, I'm watching the game as things are flipping there in the third, and the Warriors are kind of, hanging around in the final couple of minutes after it appeared to be completely over. And I'm just thinking, I'm planning on, all right, nice effort, but it's a loss. And now we're going to end up, just talking about the trade deadline. But yeah, the Warriors ultimately, Pat Spencer, 20, DeAnthony Melton, 17, Guy Santos, 18. I think about that. Spencer, Melton, Guy, the top three scoring and most productive players for the Dubs. Don't forget about Al Horford, the big block for Moses Moody, the hustle play with Horford, and the mad scramble there late, and it ultimately ends up with the Warriors getting the layup and winning this one 101-97, the final. But let's get an initial installment of Kyle's Clicks because the bulk of this show still is going to be about the trade deadline and where do the Warriors go from here, and the guys who are gone and the guys who are coming in, and the disappointment about some of the inaction, obviously missing out as everybody did, at least at this point, on Giannis Antetokounmpo. So we'll get into all of that, what other moves potentially could have been made, and make this basically our post-trade deadline show here on Dubs OT and on the Sports Leader. But a game that the Warriors, frankly, just don't win. And SDRQ4, UGG, they believe in themselves. I'd rather have Guy and Pat Hart than any so-called superstar, for real. All right, so there you go. It is the type of, and I'm reading some of the tweets and some of the social media stuff from the reporters that are on the ground there in Phoenix. Dalton Johnson of NBC Sports Bay Area, as the media waiting to enter the press conference room in the locker room area, a loud and celebratory locker room. Kyle, I think you said it to me, that you thought in the mad scramble there at the end and the celebrations, and I watched the game on Amazon Prime tonight. Great Kevin Harlan and Brent Barry call with Allie Clifton, really a dynamic duo and trio there, factoring in Allie, who's been in the game for a bit. And it was a really you thought it was as happy as you'd seen the Warriors in any game this season, right, Kyle?
Oh, definitely. And the camera panned to the Warriors bench, and you have the coaches jumping out of their seat. Steve Kerr immediately went and hugged Pat Spencer. I was like, whoa. I mean, Steve Kerr is an infectious person, but I feel like you rarely see that much affection from Steve Kerr after a regular season game.
And look, Steve has said that he likes this team. And he said a couple of days ago when the Warriors hosted Philly before the game that he would be content if the Warriors didn't make any moves. And obviously that's Steve being diplomatic in the whole thing. But you have to have a group that believes in themselves. And, how about Pat Spencer in his 50th and final game as a two-way player? Among the moves that the Warriors did wind up making with Kuminga and Buddy Hield and TJD heading out and Kristaps Porzingis coming in, they freed up a couple of roster spots. So Pat Spencer, in the final game that he's eligible to play as a two-way player, he winds up going for 20 in this game for the Warriors. And he will be converted to a regular contract tomorrow and have the ability to continue to play here for the Warriors for the remainder of the season. And obviously they're going to need him, especially in these games where Steph Curry is out. Pat got the start tonight along with DeAnthony Melton, and Pat ends up high man, Warrior team high, leading 20 points in this one. Melton with the 17, Guy had 18, GP2 with 15, Al Horford a big 13, and again, the Warriors getting it done with hustle and grit. And, oh, by the way, they did attempt 55 3-pointers and knock down 20 of them. So let's keep it rolling here in the YouTube chat. They believe in themselves. I think that's a key point. JMU22, tonight wasn't about JK. Give it up to the second rounders who whooped the Suns. Tonight is definitely a statement about those who remain and the belief that they have in each other. I think without question. And again, I'll reiterate the point that I made here at the beginning of the show. The ceiling for this Warriors team, given Jimmy being out for the year and all that, it's probably get into the first round and get beat. Like, that probably is the best that they're going to be able to do. But that doesn't mean that the guys, and we'll get to all the frustration about, whether it's wasting a year of Steph's prime and all of those things and the ramifications, and the front office does, I think, deserve a lot of criticism based on the way this thing completely played out. But I do think this is an indictment of a group that now believes in themselves, and the guys that are remaining in that locker room are connected and believe in each other. And I think that's an important thing here moving forward now with 30 games to go, as the Warriors do improve to 28-24 here now with 30 games to go. Joke's on you. Choosing Gee now over Kuminga's potential was always the right call. Our front office is a joke. So, yeah, some undertones of what is still to come here coming up on Dubs OT. Let's keep it rolling again. Game first comments. And it can't be game and other stuff. But, yeah, Juju Bug 34. This was a much-needed, cathartic win. Means nothing on paper, but who cares, man? This is a human sport. And that game had meaning for each player out there. 100%. 100%. And, look, you're wondering, after the trade deadline with Steph out and Jimmy hurt and Kristaps Porzingis, at least a few days away, you're wondering, I was wondering, going up against, yes, a surprise playoff team in Phoenix, 10 games over 500 following the loss, but a team that's been really good defensively this season, a team that's been one of the big positive surprises. How would the Warriors come out and compete was definitely something that I was wondering about. Would they have it, or would there be this belief? Would they play like they think that this whole thing is over? Because for the last 24 hours, there's been a lot of negativity surrounding the fact that, hey, this season, but because they can't win a championship and didn't do anything to give themselves even the smallest of chances this season to be able to contend for a championship, then what the hell is the rest of it worth? And I think the guys who were out there, to the point of Juju Bug 34, the guys that are out there played the game and showed exactly what it's worth to them. And again, there's going to be ugly third quarters in some of these games where Steph and Jimmy aren't out there. There's going to be ugly third quarters that turn into ugly games. And you hope, if you're the Warriors, that you don't have to play too many more of these games where you're not going to have Steph or Jimmy. But the reality is the competitive spirit for the most part has been there. And they came out like a team that had a little something to prove tonight, that they weren't just going to back down and play the remainder of this season like it's a complete and utter lost cause. So credit to them in the micro as we will start to shift toward the macro as this show goes along. 808 KNBR, Dr. P. It happened again. Spencer outplayed Podziemski. Stop playing Podziemski. The doctor is always right. I guess Podziemski was sick. But I think, all right, if he's sick, then play him less. And look, I mean, Dr. P, that hasn't been the case every night. Again, let's be honest. I mean, Pat Spencer has not had many impactful games when he's been granted opportunities since his little couple game spell there in the early to middle part of December. Doesn't take anything away from Pat Spencer earning his way onto being a legitimate, full contract player. But the one thing that's interesting, and I give Kerr credit for this, he made the decision, and I think it's the right one, to move away. And I said this on Tuesday night, I think it was, that it's time to just have Brandon Podziemski come off the bench regardless of whether Steph's in, Steph's out. When Pat was out there in the non-Steph games, Pat Spencer, I do think, gives the Warriors a better chance. In the non-Steph games, I think we've seen some evidence here that Pat being the starter and Pat playing more minutes does give the Warriors a better chance because of his ability to create and move the ball and not have as many turnovers and just, have the team kind of play with a little bit more of a moxie and a little bit more of an attitude. But yeah, Podziemski was horrific tonight. And again, only played 12 minutes, but he was a minus 21 in this one. DeAnthony Melton, a plus 21 for the Warriors. But yeah, I think Podziemski back to the bench. They also started DeAnthony Melton for the first time this season. Another little interesting note and nugget there. And as Gene McIntyre says, have to find a way to keep Melton. That is one of the positives. That is one of the positives of what, again, has been categorized, and we'll get to it, as a pretty negative trade deadline, is the Warriors do and will have the means to more easily be able to keep DeAnthony Melton next season, because they are now set up, and some of the financial savings will set them up if Kristaps Porzingis doesn't come back and doesn't come back. It could come back, but just not at anywhere close to his $30 million a year contract. If he's somebody that comes back at a much lesser price tag, then DeAnthony Melton could be, as we've talked about here over the last week, offered the non-taxpayer mid-level exception, which would start around $15 million a year. You can do that for 4 years with some incremental raises on that. And it basically would end up kind of putting Melton around $70 million for 4 years if the Warriors wound up doing the full Monty as it relates to that. Estimated eyes, nobody helping us, JD. We'll do it with what we got. There you go. Exactly estimated, and that's exactly what the Warriors were able to do in this one. Let's keep it rolling here, just with some thoughts on the game. Dylan always seems to try to play hero ball against the Warriors. He always fails. Yeah, Warriors go 3-1 against Phoenix, and if you remember, the Warriors beat him a couple of times at Chase Center. Remember, there was the funky foul call back in December in the other game the Warriors played in Phoenix. The GP2, he got called for the foul, and the Suns ended up going to the free throw line in the final second to win that one. But that was the only win for Phoenix. Phoenix 10 over 500, but 1-3 against the Dubs in this 2025-26 season. San Jose Jazz fan, 8 G Willikers. The Warriors are actually using a back-to-the-basket low post player. Yeah, Al Clutchford. They threw it down to him. And hey, for as Kristaps Porzingis can do a little bit of that too. You can throw the ball to him down low a little bit too, in addition to him being a pick and pop type of a defender. Type of an offensive player and a rim protector as a defender. So we'll see as we start to shift gears here at the end of this segment and head into the next segment with regard to the trade deadline and everything that went down and all of the disappointment, and what does in fact a guy like Kristaps Porzingis bring into the mix for the Dubs. 808 KMBR 415-808-5627. Let's keep it rolling here, Kyle. I want to get, again, some general thoughts on the game. I'll give you a few more thoughts. Where would this team be without Melton? Pay him. Yeah, again, for all of the negativity surrounding what the Warriors couldn't accomplish at the trade deadline, they will be able to more easily pay DeAnthony Melton now because of what was done and wasn't done. Again, there is a clear-cut pathway to the mid-level exception, the non-taxpayer mid-level, which could offer Melton is up to $470, which, not saying you have to necessarily use all of it, but you can make sure that you pay Melton as much as, a very enticing amount to be able to have him want to come back. And look, he already came back after the Warriors traded him post-injury going back to a year ago in his own torn ACL. So I think you have to give a lot of credit to him for wanting to come back. And he took the minimum. The Warriors paid him well from last year. He took the minimum to come back. And he has been, I think he's liked the way that they've handled his injury. I think he's liked working with Rick Celebrini. I think he's liked the fact that, he is, from a skill set standpoint, somebody that's extremely complimentary of the other players that the Warriors have. But he also he can defend, he can create, he can knock down an open shot after he knocked the rust off. I mean, D'Anthony Melton's exactly the kind of guy that you want to have. He's just a winning player. He's a winning regular season player. He's a winning playoff level player again. And I think, D'Anthony Melton going into the starting lineup. And here's another thing is we talked about, getting pods out. I think Spencer should start the games where Steph doesn't play. Melton started tonight, and, there was some concern about slowly building the minutes level for Melton, for Horford. Horford had gone into the starting lineup, didn't start tonight. Warriors actually started small with Draymond at center in the game tonight. And they rolled with Spencer, Melton, Guy Santos, Moses Moody, Draymond Green. I think it's going to be interesting here moving forward, but I think I would go with Steph and Melton now as the starters. I would go with Horford or Porzingis if he's healthy and available to play, and just play Draymond at the 4, and then Moody in there, get Guy in there as a backup hustle effort type player. And just kind of roll from there to give yourself, again, it's all about just giving yourself the best chance to compete between now and the end of the year. And then we'll see where things shake out as far as the offseason and what moves are still available to be made. Let's keep it rolling here. Let's do a couple of more on the game. Everyone seems happy now that the deadline has passed. Yeah, it is always a tremendous relief. I know Nick Friedel of The Athletic wrote this, and it's something that I will absolutely echo. The fact that his sense from being on the ground in Phoenix and talking to people is that there was a tremendous amount of relief and again, I'm not putting it on Jonathan Kuminga, but just the fact that the whole Kuminga saga is over and he is headed elsewhere. I think, and I've said this, and people have come down my road and really, I do think it had gotten to the point where it was addition by subtraction, just in terms of the vibe, just in terms of, when he was basically cast aside and really not a part of it at all, injured, whatever, benched, this team started to play their best basketball of the season a couple of different times. And I just think, they thought they could handle him being around and being unhappy. And it's not an indictment of him as a person. Again, to a man, the Warrior players have not said anything negative about Jonathan Kuminga, the person. They've been very diplomatic about it. I think they've been beyond diplomatic about it. And we'll hear what Steve Kerr had to say about the trade and everything coming up here on Dubs OT. But I do agree that there is a weight that has been lifted, not only because the guys that are here know they're going to be here, but also the whole saga of Kuminga, as much of a failure as it winds up being for the Warriors front office in particular, that he didn't amount to more or amount to a greater return when it was all said and done. There is a breath of fresh air that comes with the fact that it is done and it is over. And after tonight and a little bit on Saturday on Just Dubs, it's not something that's really going to be talked about at all anymore for the final 30, 29, however many games are remaining in the season. Horford is anchoring the defense better the last couple of games. Yeah, Horford's been really good. Dig him. Again, he's played better basketball for really the last month and a half, coinciding with that stretch where the Warriors were starting to get it cooking before Jimmy Butler went down. Let's see. Kerr got wild with the win. Yeah, bingo. Big win for Kerr, honestly. And, that's another thing just to kind of work it in when you start to factor, what are some of the ramifications from the trade deadline. I do think Steve Kerr is more likely to be back now for 26, 27 than he was before the deadline, when it was kind of hanging over that Kuminga maybe would be back. I mean, I did think as improbable as you would have thought it would have been, it was starting to trend toward, if they keep Kuminga and Kuminga puts up 20 a night and the Warriors don't win a lot in the final 2 months, and then all of a sudden Steve Kerr's gone, but now the coach that Kuminga battled with is gone. Like, could that change the Kuminga conversation even long term? So I think a statement to move on from Kuminga at the deadline is also a statement that the Warriors are going to be committed to Kerr, and they are probably going to offer him pretty close to $20 million a year to continue to come back, and he will continue to coach this team.
JD, if I could jump in real quick, I do want to play this Kerr post-game sound. It's only like a 5-second sound bite, but I think this tells a lot.
Yeah, felt like we won the championship. We needed that. We needed it.
So there you go. There you go. And yeah, I mean, again, you could tell by the way everybody reacted. And it's, look, I do not want to, have this game or some of the things we've talked about here in the first segment diminish from what was a tremendously disappointing trade deadline for Warrior fans. But sometimes having the burden of expectation lifted, and the one thing I will say for this season specifically, I don't think there was anything the Warriors could have done at the deadline after Jimmy Butler went out to win a title this year, or even to get to the finals this year. I don't think there was anything, I don't think, but I think the inaction, the overvaluing of the own assets, all of those things have obviously frustrated fans, and rightfully so. I'm not defending any of that, but it's also, and I see the comment from Jokes on You, because I think that's the transition to where we want to get here to the next segment. I'll put this one up. I'll put this one up since we both can put this one up. JD, tonight was a small referendum on the front office. How could they not believe in this team or 30? They're so worried about life after 30. They can't live in the present. Have you ever called a front office gutless? I don't know, but if there is a gutless front office, the Warriors sure acted like one. I think over these last few years, which had led them to the point where they wanted to be in on Giannis, couldn't get him, and all of that. Anyway, we'll get into that coming up in the next segment. But it is interesting because as much as this group has been held up by Steph and Jimmy, and there are a lot of nights when one or both of them are out that it looks pretty ugly in pretty long stretches. The one thing that this group has proven with Steph is that they will continue to battle and that they will continue to fight. And if you add even a moderate amount of talent to just allow for there to be a little bit less night to night pressure to do, to have Moody, Moody didn't have a huge game tonight. Like, it's always, well, when Steph and Jimmy are out, it's like, well, it's on Pods and it's on Moody and it's on the first round picks. And you know what? You add other talent and maybe you take a little bit of pressure off of those guys because those guys aren't true carriers, and you allow them to go out and play more freely. And then you can have more nights like tonight where things can kind of flow respectively, and guys can kind of grow up and help in different ways. You also create options. As far as, different players that can get playing time over other players when you're playing a little bit more freely. So I do think tonight was a little bit of a referendum on the front office that they, didn't necessarily believe in, looking to move on from some guys at the expense of some other guys who can play well with Steph and were playing well with Jimmy and did bring that competitive juice. Because let's be honest, and we'll close the segment this way before we take our first time out. The reality is this Warriors team, the way this Warriors team got the job done tonight is completely the opposite of the way Jonathan Kuminga plays, and completely the opposite of everything that Jonathan Kuminga is about. And, hustle, grit, hard work, playing like a team. So I think, hats off to the guys who got the job done tonight and help lead the Warriors to an improbable win after a great first half. Warriors were up 59-55 at the break. They had 15 threes in the first half. They wind up only 1 for 10 in the third quarter, but they do enough down 14 in the fourth to come back. Big plays from Santos, big plays from Melton, big plays from Horford, big block from Moses Moody, and GP2 pitches in 15. Guy Santos, 7 assists. How about a career-high 7 assists for Guy Santos? Warriors get the win in Phoenix, 101-97. All right, we'll take the timeout. 808 KNBR, 415-808-5627. We'll come back, and we'll get into the trade deadline because it is, of course, what is on everybody's mind. So we'll run through everything, the disappointment of the deadline. Giannis winds up not going anywhere. The Warriors send out Kuminga and Buddy Hield and Trayce Jackson-Davis. Kristaps Porzingis is coming in. What does it all mean? Warriors win 101-97. We're talking about it right here, Dubs OT with JD on the Sports Leader.
Live from downtown.
Curry, way downtown. Bang! Bang!
This is Dubs OT with John Dickinson on the Sports Leader. Streaming live at knbr.com and on the KNBR app.
The Warriors' pursuit of Giannis Antetokounmpo after a week is over. They have moved on clearly with these moves, but my understanding is the Warriors made a pick-heavy offer last week, continued to have conversations going into this week with the Bucks, but they came to the belief over the last 24 hours, the Warriors did, that the Bucks were not going to be moving their two-time MVP at this trade deadline.
All right, so there you go. And Warriors out on Giannis at that point, and everybody, I think, was wondering what the heck's going on, as nothing had been reported on that up until the point in which the Warriors and the news broke of Golden State sending Jonathan Kuminga to Atlanta along with Buddy Hield for Kristaps Porzingis. We're back here. It's Dubs OT with JD on the Sports Leader. Warriors do win tonight, 101-97 at Phoenix, a 25-7 Golden State run in the final minutes to rally after they led by as many as 10, had a horrible third quarter, bunch of turnovers, couldn't hit any threes. 19 of the Warriors' 23-point makes were in the first, second, and fourth quarters, 15 in the first half. But the Warriors able to rally and get the win thanks to Guy Santos and Pat Spencer and Moses Moody and Al Horford and GP2 as they get it done without Steph. To improve to 28-24 on the season. Before we get into the trade deadline, 808 KNBR, let's get to the phone lines here real quick and get things going with Mark and Napa here in the 10 o'clock hour on the Sports Leader. What's going on, Mark?
Good evening to you, and show sounds great. I'm giggling when you said chance of them getting to the finals. Finals of what? So it's like Jim Mora Jr., like finals? We talking about finals? But this whole, the gutless thing you were talking about made me also think about being gutless and not splitting the blanket with Draymond Green and just being done with that as well. And I don't know. It felt like there was a movement to have that happen, and I think it would have been healthy. I think back to OKC, what was it, 6 years ago, him screaming at Kerr that he wasn't a robot. That they should have traded him. I don't know. I mean, he was valuable to 4 championships. I totally understand that, but he's not an irreplaceable part. And it's like Bill Walsh used to say, better a year early than a year late. I think they're already a year late.
Well, that may prove to be true, Mark. And man, how time flies. That was actually 10 years ago this month, coming up at the end of February. Which is pretty amazing when you think about it. I think it was February 27th of 2016, which is obviously coming up here in the next 3 weeks, 10 years. I think, their willingness to move on was because of who they were going to be acquiring. And I understand the point. And we spent a good chunk of the show on Tuesday night talking about it. So thanks for the call and thanks for the input. If it had been Draymond's last game, and, we'll see what happens in the offseason. I mean, once you show that you're willing to maybe go there on some players, and look, I thought the phrasing was also important. The way Anthony Slater had reported it did feel like it was more about the Warriors were it was phrased as if the Warriors were, it wasn't just Giannis, right? It was phrased as if it was, he would go in the Giannis deal, but they were also including him in trade talks potentially with other teams. That was not specified, but the way it was written, and that could have just been to try and attract more eyeballs and guys like me to speculate as to what it is or not. But the point I'm getting at is once you make the move that you're willing to include somebody in trade talks, he didn't go at the deadline, but does that mean it's completely off the table in the summer? Like we shall see. Is what I'm getting at. But to me, what you have to do, and I think there are a couple of players that maybe the Warriors would move Draymond potentially for, but I also think, you got to build, the flip side to that is build a team to where you've got, enough good players and complementary players to where you don't have to be so dependent on Draymond to score and to be offensively efficient and to play 35 minutes at a really high level to be able to be successful. And, can the Warriors do that? Well, they haven't been able to do it the last 4 years. Can they do it in the summer as everybody gets older? I mean, that's what remains to be seen here. But the reality, the situation for that is just the fact that you're better off for having Draymond if you can limit the amount that you're dependent on Draymond, because I still think he is a bright lights and a big moments defender and leader, frankly, above all else. But the Warriors have a bunch of guys that you want to have in the big moments, but either can't get through the 82 and be as impactful as you necessarily want them to be because of age or minute restrictions or coming off injury or whatever it is. So you got to build a better roster, and the Warriors have been unable to do that. All right, one more here. Reggie and Vallejo up next at 808 KMBR before we get into more of the trade deadline stuff in depth here on Dubs OT. What's up, Reggie?
Hey, what's up, JD? Hope all is well. Yeah, man. Just obviously, I wanted to talk about the trade deadline, but I thought tonight's win was pretty cool. Much needed win just for morale and stuff like that. But yeah, I guess I'm just still pretty disappointed, like everybody else, because the expectation was to get Giannis, right? And you're going to sell the house and all this, chatter about, hey, he might come, blah, blah, blah. And we get freaking Pingus. I don't understand what the hype was all about, because the whole time it just seemed like they were gearing up to, make a big move for Giannis, or if it wasn't Giannis, was it Michael Porter Jr.? Was it Trey Murphy? And then you end up with the guy that hasn't played since January 7th. I mean, I'm trying to make sense of that move, JD, but I'm trying to also recall the time that the last time I felt like this was when we traded Monte Ellis for Andrew Bogut, because I was pissed at that trade.
Okay.
And maybe it could be like that where, you get a guy that's broken like Andrew Bogut and Porzingis. You bring him to Celebrini. Celebrini's got all the healing powers in the world. He's been tried and true, reviving people like Sean Livingston, and now we're seeing Melton come back and revive his career. So maybe, that could happen. That could be a silver lining there. But I mean, the tough part is, if it doesn't work, he's not guaranteed to come back next season. You kind of traded JK for nothing. But I guess we just needed to get off of him, right?
They did, and I think that is the risk, is that, can Porzingis help you enough to I think get into the playoffs is now the goal, right? It's, can you get into the playoffs? Can you get, make it, stay in the top 7 or 8, get your win that you need in the play-in tournament and make the playoffs, I think is the goal. And then does he prove himself to be healthy enough to where he likes working with Rick Celebrini and you're optimistic? Because here's the thing, Porzingis isn't getting a raise next year. Like, he's making $31 million. Like, Porzingis ain't getting a raise, even if he comes back and plays all 30 of the remaining games. And it doesn't sound like he's going to play on Saturday, but he is close. I will say that, Reggie. It does sound like he could play even Monday or Wednesday before the All-Star break. If not, then coming right out of the All-Star break. Maybe they may give him a couple of, but it sounds like he was on track to come back from what I've heard and what I've read pretty quickly. So I think they want to get Celebrini up to speed with him and, come up with a plan as to how they want to, him and Horford can split the back-to-backs now, probably, right? And they can figure out how to move forward there. But the hope is that he gives this team enough of a boost in the short term to where you can get into the playoffs, and then that he's somebody that you'd want to retain next year And then you're still a move away in the offseason. And again, I don't necessarily think it has to be an all-star caliber move. And then they're waiting for Jimmy, which, again, we can debate whether that's the right thing to do. And Jimmy's 37 and coming off an ACL. And like, that can all be debated. But I think to go back to the original point, and I think I'm looking at the comment here from Max Lopez, if Jimmy didn't get hurt, the Porzingis addition looks really good. Yes, assuming Porzingis could come in and play. And I think one of the things, and let's just run through it. Let's just start running through it here, because I think I agree with that statement if Porzingis is somebody that's able to play. I mean, he's only played 17 games. He hasn't played since January 7th. He's, it's been a number of different things, most recently the Achilles. He's had that POTS syndrome, which has not been something that's, that's something he's had going back to even the end of Boston, which kept him out some in the playoffs. And so that's kind of where it would have been a nice addition if he was Porzingis of 2 years ago, 3 years ago, and he was able to play and Jimmy was healthy. But I think as we start to really dive into it, my initial thought was, it wasn't the worst possible outcome, the way everything played out for the Warriors, but it felt pretty close to it. Like, it felt as if there's nothing positive to spin short-term about the way the trade deadline played out. But we're going to sort through it regardless. And the Warriors wind up getting Kristaps Porzingis. They go all in on Giannis. They miss out on other potential opportunities, which I think is probably the most frustrating thing. And then they wind up sending JK and Buddy for Porzingis, and TJD goes to Toronto. They get a second-round pick. Giannis winds up not being moved at all. And I think the frustration, though, is that there was going to be a more aggressive move made if the Warriors didn't get Giannis that could put them closer to being able to be a contender this year and obviously set themselves up for next year. And I think other than one player that wound up getting moved, and again, Giannis was not, but there is one player that I think the Warriors may look back and regret that could have really thread the needle in a number of different ways. And I think that was Jaren Jackson Jr. The fact that because they'd spent the last 5 years holding on to these assets so they could be in this Giannis conversation, held on to Kuminga too long, refused to move certain players in other deals, because what about Giannis? Weren't going to trade first-round picks for talented players to a lesser extent than Giannis. But Jaren Jackson Jr. is the one, I think, name. And you hear Ramona Shelburne say the Warriors were talking to the Grizzlies and they were going to give up a couple of picks, but they stopped the talks to focus on Giannis. And then all of a sudden, we'll play the clip coming up later, all of a sudden the Jazz are offering 3 picks and the Warriors are still waiting for Giannis. And Jaren Jackson Jr. is a member of the Utah Jazz. So I think there's other stuff that could have been interesting coming off the board as the Warriors were all in on Giannis. And when you spend 5 years of basically doing next to nothing and risking not a whole hell of a lot, and let's be honest, the Jimmy Butler trade last year fell in the Warriors' lap. It was Wiggins and 1 pick. And it was because Jimmy Butler had tanked his time at the end of Miami, getting suspended every other day for not showing up and conduct detrimental and losing his joy. So he tanked his value to a point where the Heat basically had to do with the Warriors the kind of deal that the Warriors did with the Hawks on Kuminga, because the Warriors had hung on to Kuminga to a point where they had to move him. Addition by subtraction. But you're not, but those kinds of moves are no-brainers. Like, it was a no-brainer for the Hawks to say, yeah, we'll take a flyer on this Kuminga guy. Kind of like him. take a flyer on Kuminga and send Porzingis out. Porzingis is done for us. We're not contenders. He's not coming back. We'll take a flyer. But I think the most disappointing part of the whole thing is, while it's understandable that the Warriors wanted to be in on Giannis, I still think much of the frustration it's at the way things worked out because they missed out on other moves that could have been made, because they weren't creative enough in looking at other possible upgrades or risks for players that could have helped them contend this year and next year, even if that meant giving up 2-3 picks for Jaren Jackson or Michael Porter Jr. or somebody like Trey Murphy III. They probably had the ability to get Jaren Jackson Jr. had they tapped out on Giannis before Utah jumped in and nabbed him. Would that have been a cure-all? No, but that would have been a young prime player that's a stretch big, defensive player of the year caliber big that can be complementary to a lot of what the Warriors have going on. So I think it's the frustration of that. I think it's the frustration on going all in on Giannis, miss out on other opportunities. Then Porzingis is all you get. In addition to, of course, the fact that the 2-timeline plan is now a failure. The poor picks, the inaction, all of those things. So I understand the frustration. And I think there should be a tremendous amount of disappointment. But as I was kind of sorting through it, and Trey Murphy didn't get moved, and Porter wound up staying, and who could have been the guy that they could have looked to move for that would have thread that needle? And Jaren Jackson's the one that I think they're going to wish, I think, in hindsight, that they could have gotten in on. 808 KMBR, 415-808-5627. But it's that frustration of waiting around for so long for that second timeline to develop to a point to where those guys could be players. Hell, they don't even need to be players. The frustrating part is, I think, if you're the Warriors, is they never became good enough to be thrown in the deal. That, maybe if Kuminga was as good as Jaden McDaniels, the Bucks would have jumped at Kuminga and 4 first-round picks in a pick swap. Like, maybe he could have been shipped somewhere else. But they waited around for that to come, and then it never happened. And they kept, as it wasn't happening, they kept doubling down, waiting for it to happen. And being petrified of making a move or two along the way with some of their draft capital that would have left them on the outside looking in. It's almost as if they would rather be in on Giannis and lose than not be in at all. And I think that's something that's incredibly frustrating, because it's understandable that you'd want to be in on somebody like Giannis, but I think it also shows the lack of creativity and confidence and belief in your front office and your own acumen to go out and, find the next guy that can really help you. Find the next Iguodala, find the next Sean Livingston, find the next Andrew Bogut, to reference the caller from earlier on in this segment. So I get it. But I think the frustration is what was left on the table among those that they couldn't get, and then the lack of creativity in looking at some of those other possible upgrades or risks for players that could have helped them. Again, contend is something that I'm a little reluctant to say, because, what level of contend? I don't think there's anything that they could have done, even Giannis, that would have got them to a point where they could win a title this year. Could they have gotten back to a point where they could get into the second round? To me, that was probably Giannis. That was Jaren Jackson. potentially could have got him to that level. I don't think Trey Murphy or Michael Porter was getting him to that level, but they look at it as, well, if the guy can't get him to that level, then there's no point in going and getting that guy because you're just wasting draft capital. And we can go get Porzingis, and if Porzingis is healthy, we might get to the first round, and that's the same level we'd get to if we got Trey Murphy or Michael Porter. But there's a inaction and a staleness, a stagnation basically to it that I think rubs everybody the worst way possible, considering the fact that they'd hung on to these picks for so long and still have them. Oh, by the way, still have their first round pick in 26 and 28 and 30 and 32. Nobody on the move there. So I agree with Max, by the way. If they make the move with Jimmy, it looks like a good move. But you know what? To me, the frustrating part is I don't think they were going to go in on Trey Murphy or Porter with Jimmy hurt. And I think the fans are like, well, no, with Jimmy hurt, you need that guy. And if you're going to count on Jimmy coming back, then go get that guy, be a first round and out team this year. And then you get Jimmy back and now you're cooking next year, because they still are a move away. So I think that's the part that, again, is frustrating. All right, let's get a couple of clicks, Kyle, and then we'll take a timeout. We'll come back and we'll get more into just what to expect from Porzingis. Mr. E-Painter, Porzingis has some crazy nervous system issues. Jimmy won't be ready to go full until 27. This is bad. Porzingis is not Bogut. If anyone is playing the Bogut role impact-wise, it's Melton. Yeah, I mean, again, it does sound like Porzingis is going to be able to play before the deadline. I'm hearing Monday is the pseudo target. However, you've got 2 games before the trade deadline. So, I'm sorry, two games before the All-Star break. I've been saying trade deadline for, I feel like, since October 1st every day. You had 2 games until the All-Star break. So does it make sense to play him in those 2 games? I think it actually does. See how he comes out of him, and then figure out a plan with Celebrini. He's obviously not going to play a lot of minutes Monday or Wednesday, but you got the 2 home games. You get him around Celebrini and you move from there. But again, Porzingis isn't going to be some cure-all for this season. I don't think there is a cure-all for this season. And I think the Warriors are telling everybody, because there wasn't a cure-all for this season, that's why they tapped out and said, yeah, we'll take a flyer on Porzingis. But what does that mean as it relates to the offseason and the Warriors' ability to make more moves? Well, we'll get into that coming up. Let's do 2 more, Kyle, and then we'll take a timeout here on Dubs OT. As the Warriors do get a win tonight, incredibly. Woodpit, they had to see, why would Giannis want to come here just for Steph's twilight? I think that's something that, and we saw this with Durant last year. To me, I mean, Giannis in the summer, please. Like, I hope the Warriors, and that is the one downside. It was really threefold for me. You can get Giannis or not. I thought it was better if Giannis ended up somewhere else, because then the Warriors would know that they can't get him, and then you had to move Kuminga. So they did move Kuminga, but Giannis didn't go, and there was already, I think it was Friedel who said, oh, well, they may think they got a shot. They got a shot in the summer. Like, get out of here with that. Like, move on to other areas that you can look to improve this club in the summer that aren't Giannis. And we'll see. I think it's a pipe dream that the Bucks can keep everybody together. I think he ultimately will be moved in the summer. I don't think it's going to be to the Warriors. And I think the one thing that has been, I think it's really been startling to the Warriors. Kevin Durant didn't want to come back. Giannis, I think, might have enjoyed playing with Steph for 2 years, but he didn't want to be Steph of the last 3 or 4 years for the next 3 or 4 years after the first 2 years with Steph. He didn't want that. And I think that the thing that Joe Lacob is going to have to acknowledge The Warriors are not a destination franchise. If they're not a destination franchise with Steph Curry for other superstar players, then they sure as hell are not a destination franchise once Steph Curry is gone. And I think, again, I go back to something that I used to say in my prior radio life on a different station 8 years ago when they had Durant. Joe Lacob wanted to dominate the NBA world in terms of, we're going to develop our own players that everybody wants, and we're the Warriors, and we're going to take your players like the Lakers. Like we took Durant away from small market OKC. All you little small markets out there, we're going to take your best players because we're the freaking Warriors. Well, guess what? It happened with Durant. It was kind of a perfect storm of the cap spike and all of those things, and they got him once, and they won a couple of championships, so it worked out in that vein. But Durant was miserable by the end of it and didn't want to come back. And superstar players with options have not really wanted to come here since. And whether it's Steph's shadow, whether it's, Jimmy didn't have a choice. Before you say, wait a minute, JD, Jimmy didn't have a choice. Jimmy was suspended. Like, nobody was paying Jimmy. Nobody was like, I love Jimmy, but Jimmy had no, it was done. Jimmy had no options. So the Warriors are not the destination that I think Joe Lacob believed that he was going to make them into. And what that means is, if you're not LA or you're Miami or New York, what that means is you got to build it by drafting and trading. Drafting and trading. Drafting and trading. And the Warriors have made some good trades here in this decade, 2020. The one last year they still get credit for, even if it fell in their lap. The Wiggins deal from Minnesota, they get credit for, flipping D'Angelo Russell into Wiggins. Although, again, that one, the Warriors got a first-round pick with Wiggins that turned into Kuminga, if you remember. So it was kind of a no-brainer to do that one, too. They ended up getting Kuminga and Wiggins for D'Angelo Russell. Anyway, this is not the destination franchise that Joe Lacob thinks it is, to where they can just fall into these superstars like the Lakers. And I think he's going to have to acknowledge that moving forward, and that means the Warriors are going to have to be more aggressive in trades that they make. And also, they cannot be missing on draft picks at the level that they've missed on draft picks here over the last 5 years. They've proven they can find some role players. They have not proven that they can find carriers, starting caliber talent. And they've left a bunch of it on the table, from Halliburton to Murphy to Sengun. And we all know the reasons why. And they didn't like LaMelo and Halliburton because they had Jordan Poole and Klay Thompson was coming back, and they didn't want Sengun because they had Wiseman. They didn't want Wagner because that was too safe. They wanted the blue chip Kuminga prospect, could be the next Giannis, didn't pan out. They wanted steady Moody. And then Murphy goes a couple picks later and winds up being much closer to a star than Moody will ever be. So you got to draft better, and you got to be more creative and willing to move your younger players when it's clear that they're not going to hit the ceiling that you have set out for them. All right, let's take a timeout. 808 KNBR 415-808-5627. We'll come back. What does Porzingis mean? That's going to be the next thing. We're also here. We'll do sounds of Dubs OT coming up. We'll hear some sound on everything that's going on. But also the Warriors wind up settling on Kristaps Porzingis. So let's get to the good and the bad and what that leaves for the Warriors in the summer as they play out the remainder of the season. 30 games to go. Dubs OT with JD. Warriors win 101-97 in Phoenix, and we're talking about it right here on the Sports Leader.
KNBR presents the sounds of Dubs OT.
I can see the headline now. Kerr says Warriors better without Curry.
No class, no ball.
I want to get my joy back. I'm happy here, off the court.
Now here's John Dickinson.
I give you a little what if. A couple weeks ago, the Warriors had some pretty extensive conversations with the Memphis Grizzlies about Jaren Jackson Jr.
Interesting.
They tabled those conversations because I think the Warriors were talking about 2 first-round picks. It would have been a similar type deal to what Utah did. But then Giannis was maybe available. And so they tabled those conversations because they needed those picks in the Giannis trade. And then Utah came in with 3 first-round picks. And so they come out the end here with Kristaps Porzingis. But look, he's $34 million this year, expiring contract. This man is playing to prove he's healthy. He's playing to prove he has a spot in the NBA next year, that he can be healthy, that he can be a contributor. That's a pretty low-risk move for a guy who, at least analytically, has incredible metrics.
Yeah, defensively and offensively, as far as Kristaps Porzingis, when you look at the metrics when he's able to play, that's Ramona Shelburne of ESPN, given a little what if. Again, I made the point earlier in the show. I think that's the one regret the Warriors may look back on in all of this, the unwillingness to move some picks or the inaction in the midst of kind of waiting for Giannis to ultimately not be traded, that they wind up not being able to get in to a meaningful level on Jaren Jackson Jr. before he went to the Utah Jazz, though they were talking to the Grizzlies about Jaren Jackson Jr., as you hear Ramona say. But yeah, Porzingis has got to prove he can be healthy. We'll see. We're back here. It's Dubs OT with JD on the Sports Leader. Warriors get a win tonight. Big one in Phoenix, as they would lead by as many as 10 and then trail by as many as 14 at 90-76, 25-7 run. Warriors come back and get a big win to improve to 28-24. So 30 games to go. The trade deadline now is behind us, and we're kind of mixing everything together tonight here on Dubs OT. A lot of comments, and I do think, Kyle, we are going to end up going beyond the 11 o'clock hour. So let me know if I have to end up taking a break before we get to 11 o'clock. Make sure we get all the spots in the proper hours here. But we're getting to some of the sound. We'll get to more Kyle's clicks. We got some great text messages. We also have a couple of calls on the line as well. So let's get to the calls. Shaw is up first here, calling from Bangkok. Shaw?
Yes, Bangkok, Thailand. Good afternoon. It's 1:43 p.m. over here. It's hot.
Awesome.
Yes.
That is awesome. Thank you for calling from Thailand.
Well, I mean, I just wanted to say a couple of things. First of all, congratulations to the Warriors for that beautiful win. I am so very proud of those guys, especially after this transition with Kuminga and so forth. I am so very proud of them. I wanted to say congratulations to them, first of all. Second of all, the Giannis deal, listen, if we got him, okay, that was fine. I'm okay not having him, honestly. And I've said this before. I don't remember Giannis beating Jimmy in the Eastern Conference in any meaningful games. So if he was going to come over, I would want Jimmy for on the team. But I'm not trading Jimmy for Giannis. Number 2, Porzingis is younger than Giannis. I'm okay with Kuminga coming to the team, Porzingis coming to the team, because I think he's going to add. I think he's going to be reinvigorated. I think he's going to be re-energized. You know, some familiarity with Harper. So I think that's going to go a long way. And like I said, give me any hungry players in the NBA against all the superstars and see what will happen. When you feel entitled, sometimes things don't go your way. But when you're hungry like a D, like a Pat Spencer who's playing for a contract, like a D who's playing for a contract, like a Melton who's playing for a contract, or Porzingis who's saying next year you're not going to give me $30 million, let's see what happens. Let's just see what happens. All this getting on board with Giannis and everything, it's fine if he's not here. This is a team sport. And that's why the Thunder, Oklahoma City Thunder, is winning. I think I can name Shea and everybody else's name is Jalen. I don't know that team, but they have a championship. You know why? Because they have heart, and they play as a team. Like a team play as a team. That's all I have to say. Have a great day. And
Great. Shaw, thank you. Enjoy the rest of your day, and we appreciate it. Thank you for the call. Ian J in the chat, the power of the leader out in Bangkok, Thailand. That's improperly spelled, by the way. But no, we appreciate it. And yeah, that is pretty good. That great call. Appreciate. Look, this is the team. I hate to go Marty Lurie on you here, but this is the team. The deadline is passed. This is the team. They got Porzingis coming in, and they are going to have to be gritty. And I think it goes a long way for them to show that they can do it in the first game without Steph and Jimmy to be able to fight and compete at the level that they were able to. So we'll see. I think they're a move away still, but I don't have as much of a problem with the flyer on Porzingis. But again, I don't think this is about the flyer on Porzingis. This is about the fact that it seems like the Warriors always sort of choose the path of least resistance. They choose the easy move. They choose the safe move. They choose the move that is completely risk averse. And while also being the type of franchise that constantly wants to be talked about as all in on the biggest of the stars and the biggest of the names, and the belief that they can close those kinds of deals. And I don't think they've been able to close those kinds of deals at the level that they needed to, going back to really, I think the last decade when they closed the Iguodala deal, they closed the Livingston deal, they closed the Durant deal. Wiggins fell in their lap in some ways. Good trade, you get credit for it. Butler fell in their lap. You get credit for it. Did they really close? They couldn't close the Durant deal. That was their first choice of a deal. So I think, can the Warriors be closers? Remains to be seen. All right, let's get another one in here. 808 KMBR, and it will be. I lost my spot here. Mark in San Francisco next on the Sports Leader. Hey, Mark.
Hey, how you doing? Going forward with the draft, we got to remember that Myers was the one that drafted Wiseman and Kuminga. Now we have Dunleavy doing the drafting. And what we have to hope for is that he's more successful if we do keep our draft picks. But we can't judge Dunleavy on what Myers did.
True, but again, it's also, and look, and Dunleavy does have a solid track record for, Podziemski's not nearly as bad. He was tonight. He's not nearly as bad as sometimes he gets made out to be. He also was the 19th pick and not the 7th pick. And there's a difference between 7 and 19 in terms of what the expectation is. And I think Podziemski's going to be a player that probably is in the league for 10 years and is relatively productive, probably is a bench guy. But relatively productive, and he's hit on some second round picks and the like. And so I agree with the Dunleavy part. And you're right. Bob Myers has to own Kuminga, has to own Moody, who again, I think Moody's a fine player, but Wiseman in particular, you said, I think he does have to own those two. But I also think, it's also Joe Lacob. Like how much of we don't really know. Myers took the bullet for it, but we don't really know, did Bob have the full autonomy? Was that Bob? I know he said, yeah, I picked him and that, but it is a collaborative with the Warriors. And again, I get it. Like sometimes I think we're too quick to just say, and it's not a defense of Bob, but I think sometimes we're too quick to say, we get this with the Niners all the time. Well, John Lynch drafted X and Y and Z. And it's like, well, you know what? Some of those are guys Kyle Shanahan wanted. And Kyle Shanahan's ultimately got the authority, on some of that stuff. And with the Warriors, it's Joe Lacob. And they can collaborate and the scouts get involved and the GM can put his vote on the table, but they collaborate on it. And then the GM ultimately goes in and turns in the card. But I think there's a little more Joe Lacob involved in those picks as much as everybody has individually owned them. But again, you can't do anything about that. And Dunleavy is proven to be able to find more productive players even at lesser spots. So I think he or the group get the credit for that. Maybe Dunleavy's better at convincing the group after some of the mistakes of the prior era that they can get some guys in there that can help in shorter order. Thanks for the call. Appreciate it here on Dubs OT. All right, let's get a couple of cuts here and our sounds at Dubs OT, and then we'll get to Porzingis and what he brings and where it sets everything up here. Let's go let's go to Porzingis. We'll save the I'm going to move things around a little bit. Let's go to G. Let's go to G here, Kyle. This is Steve Kerr pregame before the Warriors went and beat the Suns tonight. He's talking about Porzingis and all the injury questions surrounding Porzingis. Can Porzingis be healthy, Steve Kerr?
Obviously, he's a established player, the kind of player we've been looking for years. Legitimate three-point shooter, rim protector. Tough to find that combination in one player. And the biggest thing is his health. I don't think we would have made the trade if we didn't think he could be healthy and consistent in terms of being in the lineup. So that's the plan. Obviously, he's got to get here, and Rick's got to work with him. But Rick and the staff did their due diligence, and so there's a hope that we can help him really get right, and when he's right, he's a hell of a player. So we're looking at a guy who really fits what we need: size, space, shooting, rim protection. I mean, every team needs that, but we've always needed that.
And the Warriors especially. And again, the key point there, doesn't believe the Warriors would have traded for Porzingis if they didn't believe he could be healthy. And again, it does sound like he is going to be healthy here quickly, not maybe by Saturday, but I think he's got a shot, my understanding, Monday or Wednesday when the Warriors play Memphis and San Antonio at home before the week-long All-Star break, and they come back with a couple of home games right out of the chute. All right, big topic of conversation is, well, what's the Warriors' ceiling now with Porzingis in, and can he be healthy? And Jimmy Butler's gone and Kuminga's out, and we saw this team get a gritty win tonight. What's the Warriors' ceiling now with Porzingis and the rest of this group, which Steve's on record saying he likes? Let's hear what Steve Kerr said to that point.
Well, I think we still have a good team, a very good team. And even without Jimmy, I feel like we can make a playoff run. The ceiling is absolutely lower. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and lie and say we can be as good as we were with Jimmy. There's no way. But I believe in these guys. I believe in the chemistry. I believe in the veteran leadership. If we have good health, I think we can make a really good push and be a playoff team. And when you're a playoff team, you never know how it plays out. And that's the message. Our goals haven't changed, but we've got to get through the forest right now. We're a little bit in a stretch without Steph, without Jimmy. Before the All-Star break, we're trying to find our way. But this is what the season's about: 82 games, and you have ups and downs, and you just keep fighting and keep finding your way, and then ultimately see if you can be healthy going into the playoffs like last year and make a run.
All right, so he thinks they can make a run. I'll say it. I think they can get into the playoffs. I do not think they can win a series as they're currently constituted. I do think with Jimmy and Porzingis, or Jimmy and some other move that maybe they would have made had Jimmy remained healthy, I think maybe they could have got back to a second round, and then you see from there. So I think the ceiling is absolutely first round and out. But if they had stuck with Kuminga and not even gotten Porzingis, and look, if Porzingis can't be healthy, I think they're a play-in team and they're done in the play-in and they don't make the playoffs. But this at least gives them a shot to get into a first-round series. And then again, a move away in the summer, You see what happens with Jimmy. Do you wind up re-signing Porzingis? You're better set up to have DeAnthony Melton come back. So I think it's not as bleak, as frustrating as it is that the Warriors didn't look to make the big move or the creative move or the move that could have gotten them closer. They also haven't completely erased the potential to make a move later. The problem, though, is, and I do think this has to be noted, what makes you confident if you're a Warriors fan, given all the inaction, that the Warriors are going to be able to pull off that semi-big move that puts them in that position, even if they're waiting for Jimmy? That's just being real. That's just being real. And the way that this deadline played out and the way that they've continued to flex optionality and kick the can down the road with any level of key decision-making, if you're not confident in it, totally get it. Totally understand it. Totally respect it. And again, it may prove, and it has really at each of these different junctures in which the Warriors have had the ability to improve their team, it has left, I think, people with a semblance of disappointment since the Warriors won that last title. And a big part of the reason they're in the position that they've been in were the picks that they messed up before they won that title. All right, let's get one more on Porzingis here. And this was Draymond Green post-game following the Warriors win in Phoenix. They got it done 101-97, the final. What does Draymond think of Kristaps Porzingis coming in and joining the Dubs?
Well, they were together. But both of those guys are smart. They can both shoot. Both can protect the rim, guard smaller guys, guard bigger guys. And so I think that's beneficial. How he was great with Celtics was, they had a ton of shooting. And so if you switched and you switch somebody on him, they just throw him the ball. And you can't help because he's just kicking it out to shooters and they're launching threes, And so I think for us to have that weapon, especially with Jimmy going out, Jimmy, you switch on Jimmy, we throw Jimmy the ball, it's over, And so with Jimmy being out, add someone that you can do that to in a different way. Like, obviously, him and Jimmy are two totally different players, but that thing in particular, to add someone that, they get to switch and you can throw it in there and punish them, that changes an offense.
So there you go. You can pick and pop with him if a team switches. You can also throw it down low to him and have him be able to look to score. If he's got the mouse in the house on him, you can actually go down and post him up if you're looking to try to get a smaller player on him. And he's a legit 7'2". He is a legit 7'2" and can shoot it. I mean, there are times he looked like in that 23-24 year when the Celtics won the championship. I mean, there were times where he looked like a 7-foot Klay Thompson out there, like just casting off from three and knocking shots down. But again, he's got to be healthy. And as Rich Ray points out, Draymond, the goal was to get, thanks, Kyle. The goal was to get a skilled true big or long wing. We got the skill big, and Jimmy is the wing. Well, yeah, you just don't have Jimmy. Just don't have Jimmy anymore, because obviously of the injury. All right, one more sounds of Dubs OT, and then Kyle, do you want to keep going? Do you want to take a break? What do we want to do? Here we are going to keep going.
Let's power through. Yeah, we'll keep going.
Let's power through here as you listen to KNBR 104.5 FM and 680 AM San Francisco, the sports leader. A Cumulus Media station. Dubs OT with JD here on a Thursday. We're late. We're in the home studio here, and we're talking trade deadline. And, man, it feels like we have just – because of the big win, it feels like we're just at the surface of all of these key topics as it relates to the Warriors and the trade deadline aspect of everything. And it also is a good time to remind everybody that because we didn't get in as much depth on the trade deadline here on this show, and we're not shutting it down yet. We are still going to continue here into the 11 o'clock hour. Join us for Just Dubs on Saturday morning, 10 a.m. until noon. It's going to be a
2 hours.
2-hour edition, 2-hour post-trade deadline edition. And we got you covered as far as the deadline, 10 a.m. until noon. Myself, Kyle Harr, Raf Corral, and then we're going to have Dubs OT after the Warriors take on the Lakers as well down in Los Angeles. Not on that trip this time. I know the last few times the Warriors have gone down there to play in LA, I have been on the trip. Not on the trip because of the Super Bowl, which, of course, is in the Bay Area. So that'll be in the home studio coming up, both of those shows on Saturday, and then back at Harmonic on Monday and Tuesday. All right, one other clip here, and then we'll do some clicks and we'll talk some Porzingis, and we'll call it a night as we've kind of mixed that in here on the show as we've gotten rolling here. Warriors did win 101-97. Surprise, surprise, from 14 down to win the game there. Last cut is one from a couple of days ago, and this is Dan Patrick on the Dan Patrick show. It's Steve Kerr, but it's on the Dan Patrick show. And there's been a lot of speculation, yours truly, and I've said it here within the last couple of weeks. I think the potential for Steve to come back, I would have put it more likely he doesn't come back than does. I do think Kuminga being moved bumps that from maybe if I was at 45, 55, like 45%, he comes back. I do think it's bumped up into the 75% or 80% range at this point. Although how things finish and whether or not he and the organization can continue to be in lockstep is something that remains to be seen. But I think there's a better shot of him coming back with Kuminga no longer on the roster and this team going to continue to fight more. I feel like in his image over these last 30 games, even if the ceiling isn't as high as everybody would want it to be. And I think that does bode well for the 2026-27 season in a major way to be able to have him potentially coming back. But here was Steve on the Dan Patrick show addressing his future.
Well, I would never leave him. I can tell you that. I love Steph. I'm so incredibly lucky to have coached him for 12 years. I think every coach kind of dreams of, coaching somebody like Steph, who is arguably the greatest face of the franchise of any player who's ever lived. And I will never leave him. I can tell you, I'm not going to become a free agent and go sign with another team to coach, but it all has to play out, with the organization. And, but yeah, hopefully that's how it ends up, but you never know.
So there you go. I think it's that I think was a more optimistic cut as far as his future. And again, that was before the trade deadline. So we'll see how it all shakes out. But I do think the chances of Kirk coming back improve with the fact that Kuminga is no longer on the Warriors roster. So 808 KMBR 415-808-5627. I know there was somebody earlier that mentioned Guy Santos and Guy Santos getting better and Guy Santos starting to develop. There you go. Rich Ray Santos improving right in front of our eyes. Didn't see that coming. We didn't play this cut, but Steve Kerr did say in his post-game press conference that they're going to lean on Guy to be more of a creator without Jimmy. And he had 7 assists. I mean, so again, when you lose Jimmy Butler, you have to make up for it in a bunch of different ways. And we've seen it with more Melton. We've seen it with more Horford. We've seen it with more Guy. And now I think we're going to see them try to do it potentially with more Porzingis, assuming they can get him back on the court. On San Jose Jazz fan, can Kerr develop Porzingis? I hope Kerr can develop Porzingis. You just hope Celebrini can keep him healthy at this particular point in time. All right, let's talk a little bit more just about Porzingis. And look, it's kind of come out in the show here, but they hope to get him back and being able to be productive and play. And I think it is a good sign that Saturday, I think before the game, was on the table, and that Monday and Wednesday, it sounds like, are on the table for him to be able to play even before the All-Star break, as the Warriors sit here now at 28 and 24. If he can play, he does provide the stretch big that can defend. And, they, I think, made the move. As much as my first reaction when the trade went down was that I thought, are they going to look to reroute him? Are they going to look to send his contract somewhere else as part of a bigger thing? Does this mean the Giannis thing is happening? No, it doesn't, because Kuminga's in the deal and he would have been going to Milwaukee, and now he's gone. So maybe it rules him out. Maybe they were told they were out. Reality is they weren't told anything, and the Bucks just kind of ghosted him and then ended up hanging on to Giannis. And now they're going to try to, I don't know, they're going to try to keep him. Good luck with that. But I think if he's healthy enough, he does not make up for Jimmy Butler. He does not make him a title contender this year, but I do think he can help him win some games that can help him get into the playoffs, as long as Steph isn't going to miss too many games. And as long as the rest of everybody remaining on this roster can continue to fight to try to win games. And I think the fight is important, and earning the result is important as well. Also had some question about the concern of Porzingis being a free agent, because that to me was something that, he's making a little under the $31 million. He is a free agent, and you lose the slot, basically. Like, you can bring him back and he's going to come back. I think if he plays well, he's probably a $10 million a year, $10 to $15 million a year kind of a player. I don't, he's not getting a raise over the $30 million that he made this year. I think he almost is going to have to prove that he can stay healthy for a full year next year. So maybe he winds up back with the Warriors on some kind of a 1-year deal, and then everything can be reevaluated from that point. But I think it's probably going to wind up being half of the money that he's making now. It certainly wouldn't figure to be a raise, but again, he cannot be traded, obviously, because he is a free agent. So the Warriors do lose the Kuminga salary slot to move in a deal. Now, you could do a sign and trade, but sign and trades have restrictions. But the one thing that this does do for the Warriors, and I know you could sign him, would he be a minimum player? I'm not sure. I think he's somewhere between a minimum player and, say, $10 to $15 million. Can you afford, can you pay him 10 next year, move on from Quentin Post, free up your non-taxpayer mid-level to give that to DeAnthony Melton, and then you still wind up having Gee and maybe GP on a veteran minimum. You've got Will Richard on his deal, and you do lose some bigger salaries that you can package together, though, to be able to go get somebody in addition to your picks. But you still have your picks to trade, and that's the other part as you look at it moving forward. You still have your picks to trade, but you have to have salary matching involved in some of these picks. So I think the Warriors are set up, assuming they believe they're out on Giannis. I think they're set up better to keep Melton. I think they're set up potentially to keep Porzingis. And I think they are still set up to maybe not use all their picks, but use a couple of their picks in the offseason to try and bring somebody else in that can help get them closer to being able to make that run for 2026, 2027. We'll continue that conversation coming up on Saturday on Dubs OT as well. Also, real quick, wanted to make sure to acknowledge, Buddy Hield and Trayce Jackson-Davis, a couple of guys who were really a blast to cover. And Buddy, as John Jay says, Kermis is buttered. Game 7, Buddy, in Houston. The Warriors do not win that series against the Rockets last year if Buddy Hield doesn't go off inside Toyota Center on that Sunday night to help the Warriors get the win over the Rockets. After he was Batman. He was absolutely Batman. And the Jimmy Buddy relationship obviously was special, was kind of one of a kind. And so, obviously I know Warrior fans wish him the best, but on a personal note, he was fun to cover. And really, really somebody that teammates did enjoy, despite the ups and downs regarding his play from time to time. And TJD is a real pro's pro as he goes from the Bay to Toronto. I think he's somebody that could wind up being a backup type, third string type center for a number of years in the league. Intelligent, works hard. Again, not maybe the best fit in terms of a skill set with what the Warriors were looking for, but a good young man and a fun cover. And then, Kuminga, of course, despite the flaws, despite the, maybe inflated opinion of his abilities and the unwillingness to try to fit himself into a role, Kuminga is somebody that I do think can go on elsewhere and wind up having a nice career. He just needs to go somewhere, as Steve said, that he can make mistakes and have winning not be the most important thing. And I think, not have to play in a system that is completely revolving around Steph Curry and those championship expectations. So as frustrating a player and disappointing, I think at times things were surrounding Kuminga, he is somebody that Warrior players on a personal level did still enjoy being around. And so I think, at times it's like, JD, you've been all over Kuminga. And look, I'll say it, and I don't say this arrogantly. I don't think there was anybody in the Bay that more accurately assessed his game and his impact and what worked, what didn't work. He was a 4, not a 3. Who should he play with? Who should he not? Where should he shoot from? Where should he not? Like all those things. But again, it was never personal, although it was frustrating when you did see a lot of the things, the quitting on Steve going back to the early part of 2024 in January, the belief that the system should be changed for him, the fake injury stuff from, within the last month, inconsistent effort, refusing to defend and rebound. I mean, a lot of it is immaturity, I think, and just a belief that he was kind of that a lot of that stuff I think was beneath him. So again, all that being said, wish Kuminga the best for sure as he heads to Atlanta. And again, I would not be surprised if Kuminga does go on to be a really, really productive scorer in the NBA. The rest of it, he's going to have to really want. I'm not sure he does, but I do think he can be an effective scorer. And again, nobody kicked him on his way out the door, which is not surprising. Not even Steve Kerr, who probably could have, given the way things ultimately played out. And he needs a better agent too, by the way. He needs a better agent. I know people are talking about that. But no, I do think Kuminga can still have a career. All right, let's wrap it up here with some comments, some clicks. Little Miss Trouble. So glad we don't have to hear people talking about development anymore. Well, Guy Santos is developing. We just talked about Guy. Guy's developing, and people are still going to be frustrated with Brandon Podziemski. He was not good tonight. Again, no excuses. I guess he was sick. Maybe he shouldn't have played at all, but he was brutal tonight. But does JK get less hate with another agent? I don't know. It's a good question. We'll find out, because he may wind up, if he goes somewhere else and can't get what he's hoping to get, then I think he may be forced into making a move. As far as moving on to a different agent. Let's keep it rolling here. We'll go kind of speed around. Giannis said legends don't chase. He must be referring to Chase Center. Yeah. Well, he didn't chase anybody in the end. He's standing pat. He wants to win 33 games with the Bucks next year, apparently. Chunk him. I hate the Bogut trade because I love Monte. Admittedly, one of my biggest sports mistakes ever. Wow. That's a good one. That is a real good one. Definitely not what we expected, but as it sinks in, it's not that bad if we lower the expectations for this year. Again, I understand all the angst and the anger and the frustration, JC Mack. The only thing where I'm a little different is I don't think there was anything that could have been done to salvage this year to win a title other than me, and not even Giannis. So I think it's that's kind of where I'm coming from on it. But that being said, I think it's also fair to say, hey, wait a minute. Why did you get a guy that's played in 17 games and hasn't played in a month? And basically you're riding your ability to get into the first round of the playoffs on his ability to make an impact, because the truth is we see how inconsistent and under-talented this team is on a night in, night out basis. Tonight's win aside, that's been more true than not in this time where, they haven't had Steph and they haven't had Jimmy. But I do think you can only have optionality for so long before you actually have to make something happen. And my God, this summer they have to make something happen and be willing to move some of these picks to try and enhance this team and give it one more shot. I think that's the other thing the deadline sets up, is that next year truly is, because I'm considering them out on Giannis, but I really think next year is the last shot at, it is a last dance. And so, that's if Porzingis plays well and they can keep him healthy and they can keep him and they can keep Melton and they can make a move and they can get Jimmy back and Jimmy's awesome and rested and ready for a long playoff run because he's only going to play 35 games in the regular season. Like, all of those things would have to be true. Then you got to keep Steph healthy and have him be awesome. Again, not impossible, although I think highly improbable. And so I definitely understand the thinking of, those that said, well, go get Davis and go get Zion and go trade 4 picks for Trey Murphy and all that stuff. And look, maybe that winds up happening at some point in the offseason that ultimately gives the Warriors that last chance, the last half dance. I like that for Mr. E-Painter. Woodpit, Buddy, and Jimmy were fun together. I'll miss that. Yeah, I think everybody will. And they've got the bobblehead to prove it, right? The Buddy Jimmy podium bobblehead from early on in the season. That was a giveaway, I think, maybe in the preseason. Warriors could have at least gotten some lemon pepper wings in the deal as well. I know. So Joe Schmo watched the game on Amazon Prime, because that commercial's on Amazon Prime like 10 times a game. On it. Joe Schmo was with me on Prime tonight. Official doc. Crybaby Kuminga was still whining that he got sent to Atlanta. It never ends with that guy. I don't think he was. I just think he was surprised. I don't think he was complaining. I think that got misaggregated. I just don't think Atlanta was a team that he and his agent had on his radar. I don't know or really care whether he wanted to go there or not. But I don't think he was complaining about it. I could prove to be wrong on that. We can maybe revisit it on Just Dubs on Saturday, but I think it was just more. And look, I said this is another thing. I am gonna do a little small pat on the back. People were all freaked out that it was only the Kings and then it was only the Bucks and then it was, how many times, Kyle, did I say there's more teams interested? Like, it just, like, how many, like, it was never just the Kings. It was never just this. There were, I would say, 8 to 12 teams that were interested in Kuminga. Again, it's what are you going to get back in return for Kuminga that winds up being the issue. And as I've said for 2 years, you probably, really since the beginning of last season, you probably should just trade him for a role player. And wouldn't you know, they wind up having to trade him for a role player in Kristaps Porzingis. All right, let's get to our comment of the night.
Now, time for the Dubs OT comment of the night.
Woke up looking for Giannis, went to bed running from Porzingis. That's pretty good. I like that one, Chonkum. Appreciate all the newbies here on Dubs OT and in the YouTube chat as well, as we often love to keep this as interactive as possible. I feel like we could keep going, Kyle. But we do have the Saturday show. We do have the show on Saturday night after the Warriors take on the Lakers down in Southern California, whatever they call Staples Center now. I guess it's still the Crypt. And we'll reconvene then. But really want to thank everybody for jumping in and joining the conversation. We had a bunch of calls early. We've had some text. I did want to read this text. 408. Disappointed how this trade went, just like everyone else. But there's a positive spin on it. This assumes Porzingis can be healthy, which I know is a big assumption, a potential starting 5 next year. Curry, Melton, Butler, Green, Porzingis, maybe a couple decent bench players in the offseason go along with Moody, Payton, Pods, Gee, Horford. That could actually be a pretty good starting 5 and roster, at least on paper. Porzingis, when healthy, is a dynamic player, good offense, good rim protector. 510, no, it's extremely bleak. All right. 415, JD, great win, but Pods is playing poor lately. I don't understand how he's able to play so poorly. Kurt needs to bench him. Well, he benched him tonight. He didn't start. Pat Spencer started. He only played 12 minutes. They were limited, and he was sick. So I don't want to give him too much of the benefit of the doubt, but he was pretty bad tonight. But I think taking some of the pressure off of needing to be a carrier, especially when Steph and now Jimmy are both not out there together, could probably help him. I think Pods will come around. But, man, Pods was just finding it with Jimmy, kind of like he was at the end of last year, and then he kind of lost it. But Pods is somebody that, again, I think teams around the league would be interested in the offseason. The problem is he doesn't make any money still. So we'll roll with that and see how it ultimately plays out. All right, that'll do it for us. Thanks to the callers. Thanks to everybody on YouTube and in the chat. It's the best YouTube chat in sports. Join us Saturday. We got more of this, 10 a.m. until noon. We're going live. We'll be on the radio. We've had some pretty good numbies on Just Dubs here, despite the fact that we've been preempted a bunch because of the Niner run and the Giants are getting closer to starting. But we are going to do the 2-hour show on Saturday, and we're looking forward to it. More trade deadline stuff. We'll look around the league, all of that. Kyle, thanks to you. Thanks to Overnight Dave. And thanks to Kyle Chung, I saw. Anybody else?
Yeah, Kyle Chung. Yeah, no wonder why they came back and won that one.
Kyle Chung in studio, and the Warriors end up on a 25-7 run from 14 down without Steph and Jimmy to win. In Phoenix against a good Phoenix team, a surprisingly good Phoenix team. I did want to do fun with numbers before we get out of here. I do want to do that because they won, and there's always more nuggets when they win.
This is Dubs OT with JD. Time now for fun.
I'm a fun guy.
With numbers.
No, I'm just having fun.
On KNBR 104.5 and 680. Streaming live on KNBR.com and the KNBR app.
All right, we'll roll through it quickly. 11-15 on the road. They won the season series against Phoenix 3-1, so they've had the Suns number. Must be something about Dylan Brooks. As the Warriors won the season series for the first time against the Suns since 2018-19. I can't believe that. Warriors have won 4 of the last 5 meetings against the Suns overall. That's 2 straight. Warriors 10th win when trailing by 10 or more. They're 9-2 when they hold opponents under 100. Did it with the defense. In this one, they got a clutch win tonight. 9-13 in clutch games now, Kyle. Clutch win. 6-8 on the road in clutch games. And the Warriors won tonight despite having more turnovers, which is something that doesn't typically happen. They were not turning it over at all quarter 1, quarter 2. Third quarter, they had 6 turnovers and made 1 3 after they had made 15 threes in the first half. You make 20 threes, you win a lot of the time. The Warriors did that tonight. They also attempted 20 in the first quarter, which was a franchise record. 37 attempts in the first half was a franchise record as well. And it also it was the most they had in almost 3.5 years in the first half of games. Pat Spencer, career high 20 for Pat. The other game was the game in Cleveland, the Pat Spencer Pat Sanity game. Guy had a career high 7 assists. Incredible. A season high 18 points. And Guy has had 16 points in 3 of the last 4 games. Also extended his double-doubles or his double-figure scoring streak to 5 games. And Steve Kerr said he's going to start using him more to facilitate. DeAnthony Melton, first start of the year, shouldn't be his last. 17. Warriors don't win tonight without Peyton's 15. And they don't win tonight without Moses Moody's block late. It wasn't a great offensive game for Moody, but he did have 8 rebounds in the game tonight and that huge block. And we'll see what's up with Steph Curry as he continues to be out. Doesn't sound like Steph's going to play Saturday night, but hopefully the Warriors can get him back and get Porzingis into the mix coming up on Monday night when they take on Memphis and then San Antonio. And again, we'll be back at Harmonic Brewing in Thrive City for both the games Monday and Wednesday immediately following. So stop by and have a brew if you're coming to the game in Thrive City, or just stop by if you're not. I mean, we take all comers, and my goodness, it has been a party at Harmonic since the Niners went out of the playoffs. We haven't had a lot of shows. The last 2 have been a party here to close out January and begin February. So we look forward to seeing everybody out there Monday and Wednesday as well. All right, we'll talk to you Saturday morning, 10 to noon. Keep it locked right here on the Sports Leader. Good night. Emirates Cup or bust?
Oh, hell yeah.
First of all, you got to start off liking each other.
Big